This particular video is all about planning a strategy of managing a store shopping center successfully. And indeed, if you have something to do with shopping centers, you will understand that they are very dynamic and shifting environments full of people, customers and tenants, and of course of the foundation of the shopping center managers and leasing specialists, those people that need to drive a shopping center forward in a performance sense to improve a shopping center over time and how to plan that particular strategy. Into this particular topic, which is the steps of managing a shopping center successfully. So the focus of managing a shopping center is the best way to do. It is from a base of facts and local knowledge, and that of course is retail knowledge. Look for the issues and the fact of the property, the area customer and the tenants understand what's going on from a property. Take over perspective, understand what you need to look for. And also control, you simply must know the elements of the location and the property at the earliest stage of asset take up. So when you take up a shopping center, if it is a large, there are many different things to look. So let's go a bit further and we will talk about property knowledge. Many inexperienced property managers only know the basics to look for, so they don't understand the fuller aspects of property performance and review. In fact, they probably make a few mistakes. They perhaps don't have a checklist. That is a big problem. They can be overlooking the critical fact of the property. And of course, there can be a real problem over time ignoring what's happening with the tenants, the customers, the trade, the demographic of the area all contribute to shopping center failure. When you are looking for a shopping center, here are some ideas for you. Firstly, I would look at property risk. That is the risk factor of the property by design, by location, to understand what can come at you from day-to-day operation of the property. Then I will spend some time looking at the leases to understand what the leases are doing from a cash flow perspective. And of course, when you are looking at leases, you looking at vacancies. If they are indeed to complying with their lease occupancy with their business requirements and making sure that they are confirming as per the lease condition. Next will be look at the maintenance fact of the property to ensure that the property is safe, well maintained and is not a drain from cash flow for the landlord. And then I'll look at the factor of occupancy that are current at the moment. Occupancy is many different things, and it is related to vacancy, occupation, expansion and contraction, the things in shopping center that need to be studied to make sure that you are getting an optimal result from the tenancy mix. Of course, once you have got the tenancy mix, you should have a cash flow and a cash flow involves. Income, be it gross income, which can be rental plus the outgoing recovery, the operational cost for the property. And there will be expenditure, outgoing money for the running property, so the expenditure going out need to be managed to a budget, so the cash flow will be income and expenditure related. And then of course the landlord will have certain requirements relating to reporting and control, because their investments needs to bring them the returns they are expecting over time. So what else goes on here? Well, I would look at the competing properties in the area to understand what other shopping center could be impacting my shopping center with its custom, with a tendency mix, with its sales. Of course, you get many different size shopping center in a location, and the smaller ones are usually impacting by the larger shopping center. So you need to know how the competing properties are impacting your shopping center. You can check out the other properties and take plenty of photos and make notes when you review those other properties, and then come back and compare their tenancy, make their customer demographic and their size and operations to your property. And lastly, I would look at the improvement in a property, the improvement that are currently operational and would be enhancing the cart, the comfort of tenants and the use of the property by customer. Tired retail properties or the older retail properties are not well maintained, have a real problem in attracting customer, keeping tenants and keeping a reasonable level of market rental. Now we will develop a system to manage that particular property. And indeed, some of my system have been modified over time for the different size shopping center, for the different types of shopping center. If you need plenty of ideas to work on this checklist format process, you need to do to get started. Let's have a look at knowing the fact. Now the fact of a shopping center will be specific to its design, its location, the tenants, the tendency mix, the way in which people move through the property. The regional issue, of course. the geographical issue as well. Many things will impact the facts of the property. So what you need to do? You need to look at how you can create a system property handover where you can explore all the known things and build a focus on important property facts. Let's talk about handover system. Now you too can have a different number of checklists for a different property types given. The factor of occupancy, leasing and property operation. Indeed, you will probably know a good degree about retail shopping center now, so your list is able to be developed. Let's get going with handover system. So to give you some help, here I will be giving you a list bigger issue that I look at when I am talking on a new property management appointment. And when I say new, talking about something that's large, with many tenants, perhaps over many lease documents, with plenty of customers going there every day. So you can add to my list your list and apply locations factor that will also have an impact on property investment and occupancy. I will take you to one that is lease and occupancy documents. Now lease is an Occupy Z documentation related to the tenants, all of the tenants in occupation. All lease and tenants documents will be different or expect them to be ensured that you are looking for the differences. Read all of this. As read all the occupancy documents, ask questions, review the documents deeply, capture the information that you are seeing usually. Use a synopsis ELISA, synopsis year, and that is from where I fill out the information that I am reading from the lesson. I extract the important critical dates, the fact is about cash flow, the identities of the tenants and the landlord, the permitted use, the rental recoveries, the rent reviews, the option, all the things that impact the lease over time. I extract them from the lease and put them on a lease synopsis. Look at another lease and occupancy documents is so a deep and meaningful reviews is done of all the paperwork. As I mentioned, all the paperwork reviews is done of all the paperwork. Look at the tenancy mix and the tenants. When you review all of the tenants in occupancy, you will find factors relating to tenant proximity, vacancy and occupancy conflict. That means that some tenants are not perhaps operationally good to have near others. You need to look at the clusters and how tenants are positioned near other tenants. And of course, how customers move past is tenancy space. Is there something you can do to encourage sales for each tenant by changing the flow of customers? If your property has a number of entrances, then you will need to consider the traffic flow through those entrances by customers each day of the week and throughout the year to see how those numbers are changing. And then of course you can then go back to the tenancy mix and look at the proximity of demand to each other, the vacancy factor and occupancy conflict. In other words, you play with the tenant clusters and improve the clusters so that customers stop and buy. That's how you build a successful retail shopping center. Let's go a bit further and look further into the tenancy mix and tenant issues. So many properties containing many tenants will require a full review, a full in and mix review. As I said earlier, some tenants are better than others from an investment perspective. So you will also need to assess relevance and occupancy strengths with each tenant as part of the property view. Review. Make sure your tenant is successful, and if you have got some weak tenant in occupancy, then try and help them resolve that. And if indeed they can't resolve their trade problems, then indeed they need to be move on. The time is right and they get to lease, and ultimately you want to tenants in your shopping center to make sure that the cash flow is strong, that the rental are coming in the market trend is strong, and the vacancies factors are low. Look into other tenancy mix factor, and most particularly when you identify the weakness in occupancy, you should plan to replace or move the tenant as appropriate at the night time in the future to suit the investment, and the right time will be under the term of the lease. You can just remove a tenant from the building, from the property without due regard for the term of the lease. And you will also be looking at lease renewal options, expiry dates, expansion factor, contraction needs and clustering. Now our cluster of tenants to move to me is a cluster of about 4 or 5 tenants in a particular zone, and they need to complement each other. So once you get away from the tenancy mix issues, you get into the number there, which is cash flow. Now the cash flow from the income of a property will be critical to the investment performance. So what is cash flow? Of course, it's rental, but you need to look at how the rent is also spent in operational costs for the property, the expenditure, and you also need to look at the recoveries from the tenant. When it comes to outgoing recoveries under the terms of the leases, that then takes you back into the issue of reviewing every lease to make sure that you recovering operational cost from each tenant as appropriate under the terms of the lease. Let's go a bit further with cash flows to look for the financial factors, the pressure relating to income change, and of course expenditure. Understand the net income stream and what will change for the asset over time, and how it can be improved or enhanced through the life cycle of property. If you are managing or leasing the retail property, it's your job to enhance the asset. You are there to replace the tenants at the right time. With better tenants, you are there to help with the tenants move into the better location. You are there to improve the customer interest in the property. That's how you improve cash flow. So ultimately, you become the trades relating to an investment property. You are the specialist in investment performance and rental. Now the stability of cash flow over time should improve the client in a realistic and relevant way. And as the specialist for a property management and leasing for the area, you should have a few ideas as to how you can improve the cash flow. Don't just manage the property, improve the cash flow, improve the tenancy mix, improve the property. Number 4, which is maintenance. Now maintenance, that is a property maintenance, review the physical aspects of the property. For maintenance and repair in its current condition, look for elements of risk and damage. There can be a threat to occupancy or public safety issue. They can create a lot of risk, for there will also be an insurance risk to consider here as part of the maintenance review. Indeed, the insurance of the property may want to look at the property, the new property that the owners just bought, understand the building codes and safety codes that apply to the property in its design, and as part of its day-to-day functions, make sure of course that the building codes and safety codes are compiled with. And lastly, the maintenance and safety codes will change from time to time in the building. So review the property and all the things for current building code compliance. Make sure that you are doing the right thing, because the threat of risk and litigation is very high in property management and leasing. Look at risk management. Now risk management, any factors of risk can be identified early and resolved before they impact occupancy or financial performance. That is the root. So work with the maintenance contractors within the building to understand where property upgrades and cost controls can occur. Now stages process of property management and maintenance will help reduce the risk within the property over time. Now to a degree, your budget or expenditure budget for maintenance will help reduce risk as long as you understand what needs to be done, where it needs to be done, and how it needs to be done. That's why you should take to your maintenance contractors frequently about how the property is going, what they are seeing, and what they know is about to fail when it comes to property maintenance issue. So let's go further into a big topic, and that is budgeting and forecasting. So if you are managing a shopping center, the budget that you create and the forecasting process is critical in budgeting and forecasting. There are financial differences here to understand as part of the property management process. Our budget is something that applies to both income and expenditure over time. Yes, I said income and expenditure over time, the active word over time. That means that throughout a 12 months period, you should know how the income will change and the expenditure will change within reason based on latest occupancy tenants and occupation, the threat of vacancies, and expenditure factor to maintain, manage, and run the property legally. So the forecasting process is an extension of the budget given a cash flow. That is current cash flow issues and known changes to cash flow over time. So the forecasting is something that uses extensively in the larger properties, the largest shopping centers that you would be managing, and hopefully you are managing a few larger properties of that type of forecast in process is a professional thing. It's something you develop and improve. When it comes to the budget of income and expenditure and the actual cash flow throughout the year, the forecast allow you to move the expected cash flow over the 12 months period. So you take the factors of the budget and you apply those factors of a forecasting process. You look for the upcoming issue of occupancy and building use where the forecast could change and threaten the investment performance over time. As a specialist, as the property manager, you are there to control any threats and risks to investment poor performance over time. Now, most immersive asset under property management today have a forecasting process as part of investment control. The larger the properties, the deeper the forecasting process, and indeed the need for a more professional forecasting process. Look at property stability. So property stability is from the previous point a factor of strategy and awareness. Now, if you are the leasing person or the property manager, it's up to you to bring those factors of strategy and awareness to the property, to the landlords, to the tenants to control those factors. Of course, vacancies will always be an issue for some landlords, and property strategies to provide stability will always be available if you think about it. If you were close to your tenants, you feel close to your landlord and you understand what's going in the property. When it comes to customer interest and sale, you can do something there with your vacancies. Further stability comes from a fine balance across lease, tenants and risk management, and perhaps I should add to that customers. Watch all of these things closely and manage them well. So lastly, let's look at one particular thing which should always be spoken about, and that is landlord targets. And reporting every landlord is different. Of course, they will have target and reports to consider. Some corporate landlords have very stringent requirement when it comes to understand their cash flow, their forecasts, their leases and the tenants in the mix. Of course, you need to design reports that will help the landlord keep in control. So those reports will cover income, expenditure, forecasting, lease details, tenant mix change and tenant meetings. Now, fully informed client is a client that you can work with over time. Indeed, when the client is becoming unhappy or starting to move away from working strongly with their property manager, it's usually because the client is not fully informed and there is not enough communication between the property manager and the landlord. Client is a sad fact. It's something that always happens when the property manager is snowed under with too much work, too many tenants, too many properties, and they just can't do the job properly. It happens unfortunately quite a lot. Now look at the further facts. The fact of the matter that is this: number one, take all of these things to the next level. Look at creating a planned approach to property management issues. That number to develop some strategies to apply to each client and each property. With retail property and shopping centers, consider the best retail checklist for the fullest property control. Now, from a leasing and a management perspective, building a great property management business, it's easy to do as long as you focus on quality knowledge and systems.
दोस्तों, उम्मीद है ये इन्फॉर्मेशन आपके लिए हेल्पफुल साबित होगी। आज इतना ही, मिलते हैं अगली वीडियो में। तब तक के लिए अलविदा। अगर आपको ये वीडियो पसंद आई, then please like, share and subscribe our channel Property Expert and be with us.
If anyone wants to buy or take property on rent, then you can fill the form given below in the description.
Thank you.